Well, thank you for joining me today for our July 2020 campus update. This update is being recorded in two different sections. This particular video is about our planning and current assumptions for the fall and spring semesters of the coming academic year in light of COVID-19. The other video, and I do hope that you'll find some time to spend with it, is a brief walkthrough of our FY20 and FY21 budgets. Just wanted to make certain to give a little bit of an update on the financial health of the institution and provide some other good news regarding some outside reviews of the health of the institution. So do please find some time to spend with that. But let's turn our attention. Let me share my screen and we'll get to an update on what we know. Again, this is the first week of July, so we're still 6 weeks roughly from the fall semester. And one thing that I've learned is that a lot can happen in 6 weeks. I would remind everybody before I even get off into this that there's so many unknowns right now. There's so many things that as I've said from the start about any comments about the fall semester, they're going to have more to do with how the state of Arkansas and the United States as a whole are handling the COVID-19 virus pandemic. So by all means, don't take anything that I'm saying to be written into stone. What I do want to do is be honest with you about where we are. I want to share with you some of the highlights of an external assessment tool that we've brought into our planning processes to be able to give us some sense about, are we doing the correct work to prepare for the fall and spring semesters? And then give you some sense into those things that we do feel like we know versus those things that we're continuing to be in dialogue with. And again, you, our campus community, are very much driving that dialogue through your planning for the coming semester and really what will be many, many months of dealing with COVID-19. Um, well known that all of higher education, roughly all 4,000 colleges and universities around the country, public and private, have had their worlds upset in a way that is very unsettling because no one knows for sure what this coming academic year will bring. We have talked openly over the last year and a half through our ROI process about the importance of planning for a very uncertain future. We talked about being able to plan for the coming enrollment cliff that's going to happen in 2025, 2026, 2027. Those will be some very hard years for higher education nationally. We had been laying the groundwork for that. So again, it's nice that our ROI project has allowed us to operationally and financially to slip in and deal with the COVID-19 challenges. But that doesn't do anything to put us in better position to deal with those things that are academic in nature. That are the health challenges that we're going to face are just like every other university and college in the country. So by all means, it's important that we pay attention to that national dialogue. And we were excited, and I give Dr. Patty Poulter credit for making known this tool that Johns Hopkins put out. And they did that in partnership with several organizations. One of those was CHIA, the Council for Higher Education Accreditation. That's the umbrella organization for the 6 regional accrediting bodies in the United States. And again, the Higher Learning Commission is our accrediting body and are a part of CHIA. So Johns Hopkins put this tool forward that really was intended, knowing that there are a range of circumstances that public and private universities around the country are facing. Everything from research universities through community colleges, you got comprehensive universities, you got regional universities, you've got the Ivies. I mean, every school is having to take a look at who they are, who they serve, and how is their normal operation going to be impacted by COVID-19. And the initial risk assessment tool really takes into account a lot of those things that a school that's residential, such as us, is going to have a lot of challenges to thinking about how you're going to operate. A school like UCA that had not up until this point done a lot of online instruction, that's a particular risk function. So we appreciated that the tool allowed us to take a good look at apples to apples compared to all institutions? Is our risk high? And then what are we doing about it relative to best practices? And again, the pandemic planning task force has utilized this tool. Dr. Poulter, I appreciate your taking the lead on collecting the responses and being able to point to our evidence of being able to respond definitively on the various questions in the tool. But our risk rating very much is high. And again, no surprise because of the type of institution we are that it would be. But then the tool asks you to go through and what are the actions that you're taking or what are the assets that you have to be able to address those risks. And I appreciated that the thorough review of looking into policies and procedures, looking at do you have assets such as a health system in your local area, or do you have access to hospitals that can amplify your response to anything such as COVID-19. Communication tools are in place, public health and safety measures that should be taken. What are you doing from an academic standpoint to prepare? Um, if you are, and we are, residential and have housing operations, what are we doing to be able to mitigate the risk to students in residence halls and housing? Our dining and food services were put through a bit of a triage of questions about how are we approaching those challenges. Athletic activities, other specialized programs like music and the arts, assemblies, group meetings, cleaning, sanitation protocol, travel and transportation. Again, it was helpful for our pandemic planning task force, which has the groupings of those same sort of approaches to how we're working toward not only solutions for this fall, but assuming that those solutions need to be in place potentially for multiple terms into our future. And again, we take that initial risk rating where we scored high to our mitigation steps that are being taken, put us in position that this particular assessment says that we're very prepared to mitigate COVID-19 impacts. So that reduced our overall risk to moderate. Again, never taking away risk altogether, but the steps that we're taking, again, it was good to have that external validation that we are heading in the right direction. So let me speak to things that we know, but let me be very clear along the way about those things that are still very much unknown. One thing that we know, regardless of instructional mode, our classes for the fall semester will begin August 20th. Whether in person or online, the classes will begin on the 20th. We also know that all courses, regardless of where they are in terms of the mode of operation, all courses will go to remote academic instruction after November 20th. And again, that's with an eye toward all healthcare professionals point to that colleges and universities around the country just need to bank on that when we get to regular flu season, that you need to cut down on as much as possible your students, your faculty and staff having those interactions in the classroom. And again, when you remove the having to go to class aspects of moving about a college campus, you reduce significantly the number of human-to-human contacts that you have. So we're going to do that. That Friday before Thanksgiving week will be the last day that any classes would meet in any sort of in-person arrangement or any labs and the like. After that, all the way through exam week in December, will be in remote operation. That does not mean that the campus as a whole is closing down. Our housing, our dining services, library, all those sorts of support resources will remain open. But what we'll do at that point, we'll pivot just like we have in the spring and the summer to who are our essential personnel to be able to deliver that level of operation. And then we'll move toward all other employees going back into a remote sort of operation. Again, this is something that we need to be prepared, not just for a few months. We need to be prepared. What if we have to do this for a year or two? Final decisions have not been made about default mode for the fall term, but I would say we probably have at least come from about 10 different options down to about 3. The first one down there at the bottom is opening for classes with the majority of classes being in person but with having contingencies for all 2,500 classes to transition to online if required. We also, our deans and chairs and faculty are actively involved in the conversation and laying the groundwork for what if we have to move instead in August to the majority of classes delivered online and only reserving in-person classes for those courses, labs, studio experiences that really cannot be done remotely. And then I have to remind everybody, I've had to do this several times in the last 4 weeks, is that we also have to have our contingency plan for the entirety of the fall semester to be delivered online. Again, it's not going to have a lot to do with where UCA is. It's going to have more to do with where the state of Arkansas and the United States as a whole are as we look 6 weeks out to what we can do. But again, I cannot thank enough our deans, our faculty, chairs, CTE, a lot of those entities they've been working since about February 15th, not just to prepare what would it take to be able to finish the spring semester, but that's been an ongoing lift to be able to figure out what are we going to have to do to be able to do the fall semester, to be able to do the spring of 21 as well. So I feel like the preparations that have been laid have absolutely put us in position where we'll be able to answer the bell regardless of those three scenarios. And we know that we've got a wide range of interests and desires of our students, both returning as well as new. We have everything from students that want only online courses that are not at all interested in being placed certain on the UCA campus, all the way through. We've got students that only want to come to UCA if we're as close to normal as possible. I don't know what normal is anymore. But yeah, I would say these 5 buckets that you see here are roughly how you can characterize most of our returning and new students. Again, that wanting only online. We've got students that they want residential experience, but they only want to take online courses. We've got students that want to commute, but they want face-to-face. And I'll show some numbers here in a second. We know that there are almost 4,000 students that want residential and to have face-to-face courses. And then I would say the bulk of the student body is they want a mix of online and face-to-face, and they want to live on or near campus. Again, I put the question mark bubble there. You can probably come up with 1 or 100 more examples. But either way, we know that there are diverse opinions and diverse desires of our students. Again, our academic leadership and all the guidance and support infrastructure that surrounds that leadership have been working tirelessly since mid-spring to position options and necessary supports to be able to meet the needs of our students. Our academic leadership has documents that will be forthcoming regarding instructional delivery options, kind of a summary of those tools and those delivery strategies that are being utilized by our faculty. That I believe just in the next few days will be released. All the colleges are working on college-specific documents that get to best practices within the college, which also include the building maps for the space that they occupy, as well as traffic patterns, ingress, egress, decisions that need to be made regarding classrooms, labs, rehearsal spaces, etc. So it's a logistical challenge, but again, our deans, our chairs, our faculty, they're stepping up to the challenge. And again, we feel good about the work that UCA is doing to be able to prepare for the semester to come. A lot of that is resulting in really a range of opportunities for different instructional and learning opportunities. I mean, these are augmented by the fact that we had our existing UCA online courses. We had existing hybrid courses. I mean, a lot of courses on campus that already meet in a hybrid mode, in that the class doesn't meet in person all the time. They're online, and they have strategic gatherings for in-person delivery. And there are a lot of new as courses have been adapted for that. Speaking of adapted, a lot of courses that previously been delivered in person, that are being adapted for online delivery. our faculty, I cannot thank them enough for the work that they've done to be able to reposition again so that our students, especially those that only are interested in having online courses, do have a range of options available. We have courses that are being adapted for an A/B delivery mode. And just a simplified explanation of that, that might be a class that typically meets on Tuesday, Thursday. Half the class might meet in person on Tuesday, and the other half meets in person on Thursday. And Zoom strategies or other synchronous, asynchronous strategies might be used to be able to have the course meet at all points in between. And then we know we've got courses and labs and other experiences that must be delivered in person. And our faculty are working to be able to put in the necessary distancing requirements to be able to reset the spaces that will be used for those, and to make certain that we've got safety protocol in place to where anyone who does engage in those courses can know that they're doing that with safety first and foremost in mind. But the important thing is down there at the bottom. All 2,500 of our courses that are delivered for the fall have to be ready to pivot to remote delivery if required. And that can be day 1 all the way through day 100, because much as the spring, we did not know when that day would come that we would have to do that. So again, our deans, faculty, and the academic department chairs are really working to make certain to position all of those 2,500 courses for that flexibility. We do see signs in the enrollment data about our students' enrollment intentions for the fall. One thing that I would point to that I think has been very encouraging to our campus, especially if we do find ourselves having to go to majority online delivery, that this summer our returning students have responded very positively to all the courses having to be online. Again, our faculty have stepped up and our students have stepped up to face that challenge. And we saw at the undergraduate and the graduate level, our summer 1, summer 2 enrollments combined have been comparable to 2019. Again, very excited about the fact that that is true. That at least speaks to we've had more faculty and more students that have been exposed to quality online experience inside of our academic departments. We also see, just in terms of enrollments for courses for the fall, and again, that's with that mix of in-person, online, hybrid approaches. That's what's currently out there now. Just any measure that you could take. Our first-time freshman numbers are running a little ahead of where we were last year. Our undergraduate continuing student population is on par with the prior year. Transfers a little bit lower, but the last time we looked at, they were a little bit ahead. That may have more to do with the cycle of processing transfer applications. Graduate continuing is up a little. Graduate new is in line with, but our undergraduate total enrollment and our graduate total enrollment, we're very encouraged about where we stand in terms of the interest of our returning and new students in being a part of the UCA experience this fall. And again, this is undergraduate and grad, but looking at total credit hours registered for the fall semester, a little down, that's 1.1%. But for those of you, faculty and staff that have perhaps not viewed the budget update yet, that's the companion piece to this, is July 2020 campus update, know that we have built our budget assuming a 5% tuition and fee decrease. If these numbers hold, we really will remain in good position, but we're also prepared to be able to take whatever steps are necessary if we have to make further budget adjustments, if we have enrollment that's down by more than 5%. Excuse me, I'm so sorry about that. We have other encouraging signs. Early housing numbers show that heading into July, 99.5% of our beds were reserved. So certainly that continues, and that's even beyond the deadline for being able to get deposits back for students. The New Bear Central Online Orientation registrants now stand at 1,798. for our incoming class. Very excited about that number. We know that our freshmen from last fall, the fall of 2019, have re-enrolled for this coming fall semester at a rate of 78.2%. That's 3 percentage points higher than the prior year, and both of those years are higher than any other years that we can replicate in recent times. And then there's just the confidence born of the spring semester and how our entire UCA family handled the COVID-19 transition. I think that there's a sense among our student body and there's a sense among our faculty and staff that we were not one of those universities that just threw up our hands and said, we don't know what to do. We rolled up our sleeves, we put on our thinking caps, and we found a way to be able to see that spring semester through. We've successfully seen the summer semester through, and we know that we are working toward plans that are flexible, but they're intended to keep academic quality and personal safety first and foremost. So speaking of that, what are we going to be doing to prioritize health safety of students, faculty, and staff in all modes? And I say all modes in the coming months. Here in a moment, I'm going to speak to just how long that we probably are going to have to be in a mode of dealing with COVID-19. I mean, we may have several different modes of instruction as we go through the next 12 to 18 months of our experience in our history here at UCA. I think that all health professionals and all scientists, would tell us that the threat of the virus is far from ending. And anyone that thinks that this is 30, 45, 60 days away from just going away is just silliness. We need to assume that this is going to be for the entirety of the 2020-2021 academic year. I don't mean to be a downer here, but we're a mere 4 months into what likely is 18 months worth of our lives and certainly our university operations being disrupted by COVID-19. So as we're thinking about how we're positioning ourselves to be able to meet the needs of students, to be able to meet the needs of faculty, and to be able to meet the needs of staff, a lot of that is not just about what's going to happen in the next 30 days. It has to be thinking about the long game, because there is a scenario where this goes into the 21-22 academic year as well. But we know there are two things that, whether it be epidemiologists, any of the healthcare providers, the doctor network that we're working with, they say the same thing over and over again. If we will pay attention to distancing and face coverings, those two things together make a tremendous difference. So they have to be, no matter what mode of operation that we're in, whether we're in person or we're online, we're still running a university. We will be making certain that distancing and face coverings remain in our strategies, because we know that they make a huge difference. I believe that our students, our faculty and staff are going to wear because they care. But I can also say this, and this I think is the first time that I probably have announced this in such a public way. Our students, our faculty, and our staff will have to wear a face covering this coming year in enclosed areas or when distancing is not possible. That means that face coverings will be required when inside facilities. That's going to include all classrooms, studios, meeting rooms, hallways, stairwells, or again, anytime when social distancing is not possible. I mean, it's conceivable that there could be an outdoor activity where physical distancing is not possible. If so, then face coverings would be required in those instances as well. This would not be required when a person is in their office or their station of work, or when a student is in their dorm room. And it would not be required if a documented health condition prohibits a student, faculty, or staff from wearing a face covering. But across the board, face coverings will be mandatory in enclosed spaces this coming year. All healthcare professionals remind that the contact tracing calculus is based upon, have you been within 6 feet or less for 15 minutes or more, again, without a face covering on, of someone who is known to be COVID-19 positive or is symptomatic. So really everything that we're doing to reimagine 3 million square feet of facilities with 500 plus ingress egress points into those, and countless different types of rooms that occupy that 3 million square feet. Every single one of them are going to have to be set up and interacted with in a different way than we've previously been able to do that. So classroom, meeting space, activity spaces, they are all going to have new maximum occupancy and operational requirements that have to comply with CDC guidelines. That will dictate how that space can be used, what type of class might be able to meet in that, what form of delivery, all those options that our deans, chairs, and faculty are working on. That's part of what they're doing, is looking room by room at their inventory of places where they deliver instruction and knowing what their limitations and what their possibilities are. Physical distancing guidelines have also been developed for high traffic areas of campus, and some of the examples will be Hyper Center, Student Center, Torreson Library. And that includes that appropriate signage is having to be installed, and then physical changes and protocols for how human beings interact with those spaces are also having to be changed before we get back to the fall semester. We also have to be ready for robust testing and timely contact tracing. All universities across the country have to be able to test and trace all of their students, faculty, and staff when they're symptomatic or suspected of exposure to the virus. So we're excited that we're just a few days away from publicly, and we'll have some big announcements of this, that Conway Regional Health System, ourselves, and Hendrix College and Central Baptist College are going to be partnering on a City of College testing and tracing consortia. Very excited about the fact that we can do a lot more when we bring our collective resources together. And again, we love that our colleagues at those other two colleges and the folks at Conway Regional, they see the power and the possibilities of coming together and working in a cohesive team to be able to develop a strategy going forward. Our University Health Center, in addition to that testing and tracing consortium, will also be taking some extra steps. They are in the process of developing tools that will be available. There'll be information, communication, screening tools that will be available for all UCA students, faculty, and staff. In the end, one thing from the consortia all the way back to what we'll be doing just within the UCA family and our health center will be leading, screening must be easy, testing has to be simple to arrange, and results must be timely. Those things are all very important. Likewise, it's very critical that all universities and colleges, and I know from our presidents and chancellors meetings at the state level, they're roughly every 10 days or so. This is a big challenge that a lot of universities and colleges have before them. We are very fortunate about the fact that we have the entirety of Carmichael Hall reserved for this coming year, that all 120 rooms in that building will be reserved for students who cannot return home for quarantine or isolation. And then we have 33 rooms in housing bordering campuses that are being held open for COVID-19 use in the same. So we're very fortunate to be able to have that inventory available. And again, that's something that I think as you're again paying attention to the news stories that will be coming out nationally in the coming weeks, the schools that are able to solve that puzzle, that's going to have a lot to do with how confident that they can approach this coming year. Ensuring technology access and academic continuity is also a key. We had a great example back in the spring of just how many of our students face technology divides. Whether it was as simple as I don't have a laptop, I need that technology, or even if I return home, I don't have access to broadband. Many of those students that filled out the hardship forms to be able to stay in the residence halls. We had 400 plus that stayed all the way through finals week. Many of them, a lot of that had to do with the technology divide. We could get a laptop in their hands, but even if they went to home, wherever home was, they would not have had access to internet at the level that they needed to be. So we are working to ensure that all returning and all new students have a laptop meeting university specifications. Hardship funds are bridging the financial divide for that. And it's going to be a mix of sources, including the CARES Act funds that can be used for that purpose. But I'm really excited about the response that we've had from private donors that have stepped up, and we've got a challenge match going that our entire board of trustees has made commitments to it. Our entire cabinet has done that to be able to build up a pool of private dollars for any students that need to have their laptops supplied through that route, because CARES Act funds would not allow it. We also have a plan that, again, all 2,500 of those course experiences, that if a student is quarantined or isolated due to COVID-19, they will be able to continue their coursework through the quarantine or isolation period. Again, ensuring technology access and ensuring academic continuity for each of those students is going to be very important. And then general health, safety, and hygiene. I know that many of you that are watching this, you may not be among those individuals that are on campus regularly. We have a quarter of people that nothing has changed from March 13th to now. I mean, I get to see them on a regular basis, but many of you I know have not had the opportunity to be on campus to walk through the buildings. We are in phase 2 of our return to work for staff, but I know many that are allowed remote assignment are still doing that. But if you were on campus, you would see at every single building you go into, it's signs everywhere. There's signs. First of all, every door you walk through, all 500 of those ingress egress points, you see the sign on the left that reminds everybody of what they've agreed to. Again, all faculty and staff having to sign off that they understand that there's a self-monitoring, self-screening that you're expected to do every single day. About, have you had a fever of 100.4 or greater in the last 2 days? Have you had a persistent cough, difficulty breathing, sore throat, lack of taste and smell? Have you had contact with someone who's known to be infected within the previous 14 days? All of those things are what's expected. And again, that sign as you walk in every door on this campus is a reminder of what we've all agreed to. But you'll see everything that we're doing. I mean, the bear paw prints that are now being installed all over campus, all those taped X's that you've seen in different places on campus, they're being replaced with these logos that are affixed to the floor. And anywhere you go, it's just a reminder about 6 feet of distance, a reminder about the face coverings, a reminder about covering your cough or sneeze, just all those things that really get down to good hygiene. Everything that we've got on our COVID-19 planning and response is captured in our new coronavirus website. You've got this here. It's uca.edu /coronavirus. I hope that you all are familiar with the site. We've repackaged all of that to have a section that's just for students and their families, a section that's just for employees, and then general sections that look at our responses from March 13th forward, as well as resources and other information about the CARES Act funding. I do hope that you have bookmarked that and you're going there on a regular basis for that. But I'll end with, I cannot stress enough the importance of face coverings. Whether it's on campus or in our communities, we have all got to adhere to the guidance that we're getting from all health professionals, that you're not just wearing it for you, you're wearing it for your neighbor, you're wearing it for your family members. I don't know why someone would refuse that, especially if they really care about those individuals that surround them. We're going to make certain that every faculty member, every staff member, and every student in this university has appropriate face coverings. We're going to make certain that when students, faculty, and staff are in enclosed spaces where you're having to interact with individuals, that they're going to have to wear those face coverings. Again, we'll have the one limitation: if a health condition that's documented does not allow that, then we'll respect that. But we need to stop the spread. And the most important things that we can do are wear those face coverings and keep our distance. Everything that we're doing for the fall is with an eye toward that. So again, some of you I may be disappointed. There were some things that I clearly put a pin in, that they're still unknowns, that we've got much discussion over the next 6 to 8 weeks as we ramp up to begin implementing our plan for the fall semester. But I do hope that it at least gives you some sense. I think for faculty, especially, if you're wondering about those conversations that are occurring within your department, within your college, I would encourage you to talk to your chair and talk with your dean or talk with the provost office. For staff, I want you to know, I mean, the cabinet, our pandemic planning task force, there's no area of the university that doesn't have representation among those two bodies. Make certain to speak to your supervisor if you have questions about things, or you may even have something that you have considered. You're wondering, hey, I doubt the university has even thought about that. Put it forward. 9 times out of 10, it is something that's being worked on, but it has been dependable that weekly a topic will come up in our conversations at the leadership level, or you know what, that has not been considered. We need to begin working on that. So by all means, visit the COVID-19 website on a regular basis. That's where we'll be putting, it's very much, it's a living, breathing, dynamic process building up the plan for the fall semester. We want you to be able to find the most current information on that place. I hope this has been very helpful. I cannot thank all of you enough, especially behind the scenes. We have hundreds of employees of this university that are working tirelessly. They're working long hours. No one could have imagined 6 months ago that we would find ourselves in this mode. But again, they're working to position this university to be stronger when we emerge from this, not just to survive the challenges of the coming months. Thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you so much for your commitment to our university. I'm very proud to work alongside all of you. Go Bears.